Hey everyone, thank you for being here today. I have a great interview with Joaquin Rosales, and I'm going to go through some questions about immigration. He's an immigration attorney who's been doing this for a long time. I'll let him introduce himself a little bit, but he's the star of the show, and we're going to ask him some questions. So if you're interested in immigrating to the U.S., pay attention. So Joaquin, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you work? What's your favorite visa?
Hi James, how are you? Thanks for having me over here. Like I said, I'm an immigration attorney. We focus on different types of visas, anywhere from investment-based visas, employment-based visas, town-based visas, to family petitions, and removal of the fence. What's my favorite visa? My favorite visa is the one that gets approved, James. So yeah,
That's
there's
great.
a lot of them. So I mean, shoot away.
That's great. So Joaquin, tell me the three most popular visas of 2022 for an immigration attorney.
Okay, here are the three most popular visas, I think, for immigration in 2022. Family petitions, that's when a relative here in the United States is petitioning for you outside of the United States, so you can come live here with them. Entrepreneur visas, which can fall in two categories. One is the investment one, where you invest a certain amount of money here in the States, and you're allowed to be here with your family. And then on the other end, on the entrepreneur end, there's a visa, which is an entrepreneur visa, in which American investment is made on you essentially, and then you're brought to the United States in order to fulfill basically that endeavor that they have. So the third one I would say is the talent-based visas, which could be linked up with employment visas as well. So if you have a talent, if you have a profile that meets certain criteria because you are exceptional or you're extraordinary in your own field, then you can do what is called a self-petition, and you can petition yourself so you can get a residency here in the United States. So I would say those are three of the most popular visas right now in 2022.
Tell me more about the family petition and why it's the most popular visa option in 2022.
Well, the family petition is one of the most popular visas that we get in 2022, as you said, and the family petition is essentially the process by which an American citizen or a resident can petition the relatives outside of the country so they can come here and live here. We're talking about your parents, you're talking about your spouses, you're talking about your kids. And essentially is a process that it's utilized every day here in the United States, and it's there in order to, reunite families across the world. And that's a pretty big priority for the United States.
How long does it take for a typical family petition to be processed?
A typical family petition to be processed, it usually takes, I want to say, an average of around 15 months or so. Obviously, with COVID issues, we had a little bit of more of a longer wait, but now we're getting back to the times prior to COVID where we would get essentially the process over within around 15 months or so.
Okay, awesome. Another question about family petitions. Can an applicant complete this themselves? And two-part question. And why would you recommend working with an attorney when completing a family petition?
Can an applicant submit their own family petition? Yeah, nothing in the law states that you need to have representation in order to do this, but this is a very detail-oriented process where you have to make sure that you are given the right information to the entity that adjudicates these processes, these applications, and you're not making any mistakes. Also, you have to do a research. Us as attorneys, we do a research of the people who are applying for and the people who are receiving the benefit, because there's a lot of times we come across issues that become an obstacle for them to be able to finish the process. So it's really important that you have a professional that really understands what immigration is looking for and what they need to provide in order to have a successful process.
Great, well you heard it here first. The family petition is one of the most popular visa options, and it's great because it gives you, residency right away, right?
Yes, the family petition does give you a residency, that is correct. So once you enter here and everything has been approved, and so essentially it's a two-step process. The family petition is the actual first step of the process. And then the second one is when you go to the consulate, the American consulate in your country, and you have a final interview. After you do that and you come into the United States, essentially, you'll receive a green card, the actual green card that's so popular and people know about, and you can reside here for the rest of your life. And after 5 years, you can become a citizen of the United States.
Joaquin, how does someone get an investment visa, or an entrepreneur? How does an entrepreneur get a visa in the U.S.? What's the best option?
Okay, the best option for an entrepreneur, I would say, or there's a couple of them, but definitely the investment route. There's a visa called the E2, which in comparison to, let's call it the big brother investment visa of the EB5, is a lot less money. For the EB5, you're required by law to make an investment, a minimum investment, and we're talking about $1 million plus, right? Whereas the E2, although you don't have a residency, you have the ability to renew it as many times as you like, and essentially you can stay here for decades, and you can travel, work, and do everything that you would want to do with a residency. The beauty of the E2 though is that you don't have that requirement of a certain amount of money that needs to be invested. So it doesn't have to be $1 million. It doesn't have to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. It could be $100,000 and $150,000, right? Which is something the more practical and probably more realistic for a lot of other people. So entrepreneurs can certainly utilize this visa in order to advance their businesses, maybe expand their businesses here. I know the visa is the L1, which is essentially a transfer of an executive, and or if you want to expand your business and create a new office here in the United States, that's another way of essentially getting here for an entrepreneur. And then there's a really new visa that they just rolled out, which is basically, it's not a visa, it's a parole. And then it's called the entrepreneur parole visa. So that's the government given the authority to immigration, essentially, to allow any person they deem is going to help entrepreneurs or help businesses, American businesses, succeed. So they allow them to come here and live here, so long as they help out the entrepreneurs here in the United States who are investing in that person.
Great. So there's many options, right?
There's several options for entrepreneurs to come here. It really depends on your circumstances, depends on what you want to do. Like I said, like we spoke about before, there's investment options. There are just also talent options as well. You can also make a petition claiming that you're so talented at whatever endeavor that you have, whatever business that you have, you're such a great entrepreneur that perhaps you should be given a residency. There's also transfer of executives, or like I said, expansion of offices to the United States market. So that'll be another way. So there's just a bunch of different ways. It really depends on the circumstances of the person, what they want to do, and what their profile looks like, and obviously we look at all that and make sure that we advise properly.
Well, Joaquin, thank you for sharing that information with me. I think this just reiterates why it's so important to work with an actual immigration attorney, not necessarily a specialist, but to talk to a couple immigration attorneys, to work with a specialist, but to talk to others so that you know the options. There's options whether you have talent, whether you have family, whether you have money, whether you have jobs. There's different options, and some people qualify for many different options. So make sure that you subscribe to this, send your information. If you want information on, you want to talk to an attorney, you want to talk to Joaquin, there should be information on wherever you're watching this about doing that. So schedule a call, Joaquin, talk to you personally and help you through this. So hope that helps. So Joaquin, tell me, what advice do you have for choosing an immigration attorney? I know you're an immigration attorney, and there's a lot in Miami, and you're all very busy. So what's your advice for someone who's coming here and wants to immigrate to choose an immigration attorney?
My advice to someone who wants to choose an immigration attorney is just to basically have a conversation with the attorney. In the end, these are processes that are going to change your life and your family's lives tremendously, because you're moving to a different country, or at least that's the ultimate goal. So you want to work with someone that you get along with and you're able to communicate with well, and you like. like I said, this isn't something that's done quickly. Most visas, take their time, and as attorneys, we need to work together with the client in order to best serve them. So we have to be a team. So my advice is just simply to fill out and have a conversation with the different attorneys, and then make your determination based on who you think you would get along with better.
So where do you find, a little bit more about that, where would people find attorney information? Because I know on the U.S. Immigration Foundation, we're just getting set up, but we're working on a directory so that we can have different attorneys who specialize in different options. But where would you recommend? Just search on Google?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. It's just like anything else nowadays. You can go online. You're going to have a lot of different hits, and obviously people are paying for targeted advertisement. But in the end, you have the tools available, to sort of do at least the preliminary work of picking, say, a couple of them, and then signing up to have a conversation with them via phone, Zoom, whatever that may be, so you can make a determination.
Maybe a better question, what should people avoid when they're looking for an immigration attorney? Because I know that you have, I know there's a lot of horror stories in Miami, there's a lot of notarios, there's a lot of stuff going on. What would you avoid? I guess one, and I'll answer it a little bit myself. One would be to make sure they're licensed, right?
Yeah, so just like you said, I mean, unlike in in a lot of countries in South America, where, like I come from, for example, and a lot of people do, a notario is also an attorney. That's not the case in here. You have to be licensed in one of the states of the United States. And for immigration purposes, so long as you're licensed in one state, you can represent anybody across the entire country. So yeah, being licensed is obviously extremely important, and obviously will give you the ability to work with someone that knows what they're doing, as opposed to someone who is not licensed and doesn't know how to do this process. So we find, unfortunately, that people try to save a little money, try to do it on their own, try to do it with a notario or a paralegal or something like that in order to not pay that much. And in the end, it turns out that the application is messed up, and we have to fix a pretty big mistake, which is in turn even more expensive than what you would have spent originally had you done it with an attorney.
Okay, well, thank you so much for answering that. It is important to find a licensed attorney who knows what they're talking about and who you get along with and you're comfortable working with, because it's a slog at times. There's a lot of paperwork to fill out, and you want to work with someone who knows what they're doing, and it's just going to change your life. So if you want to, we have some attorneys on our website on the USimmigrationFoundation.com. Tell us an overview, a big picture of how to immigrate to the United States. How does it work? How does the immigration process work?
Okay, how does the immigration process work? An overview of how to immigrate to the States. Well, that's a very compounded question, but in general, essentially, there's, I would say, 4 routes, right? You can go the investment route, where you invest in money here in the United States in order to come here. You can go the family route, where you have family here in the United States and do petitions for you. You can go the work route, where there is a business or a company that wants to employ you here in the United States. There's the talent route, in which you are essentially telling the United States government that based on your talents and based on your profile, your experiences, the work that you've done, you should get a green card, because it's going to be favorable to the United States to have someone like you. So to dive into a few of those, we've spoken before about family petitions, how a American U.S. citizen can petition for their parents, their spouses, their kids. On the investment route, you have visas like, and by the way, there's several to each category, so we would have to dive in later on.
We have a lot of
videos.
information on the website. Yeah.
So on the investment side, you have a direct path to residency, which is the EB-5, where you have to invest a minimum of $800,000 to $1 million in order to get this residency. Then you have the E2, in which you don't have a specific amount of money that you have to invest, but it's depending on the business that you want to either buy or you want to sort of create here in the United States, depending on that, but the amounts are much less. We've done ones for $130,000, $150,000, so it's a lot less than the EB-5. That's on the investment side. On the employment side, as I mentioned earlier, if there is an American company that is interested, the United States company that's interested in employing you for the work that you do in a specific field, or just simply because they need it and they can't find anybody, you can sort of look at that route. There's a lot of demand here in the United States by companies that are in much need and demand of employees, and when they can't find them here in the United States, they can certainly try to get them outside of the United States. Jumping on to the talent-based ones, as I said before, it's essentially a couple of visas that look at whether a person has what they're called exceptional or extraordinary abilities. There's a lot of different criteria in order to determine that, but essentially you're telling the United States government that in comparison to other people in your field, you're above the average, and the country has an interest to have a person like you live in the United States and reside in the United States. So overall, I would say that those are sort of the ways of potentially being able to emigrate here. Obviously, there's several visas per category, and obviously the process could be different depending on whether you're inside. Sometimes you're able to do things inside the United States and you don't even have to leave. Sometimes you have to certainly do it from outside of the United States. Sometimes you can have a combination of visas, in order to stay here and be able to meet your end result, which is potentially a residency, right? So it really depends on the person's circumstance, but yeah, there's plenty of visas out there. It's just a matter of doing the research and finding the appropriate people that can help you to do so.
So Joaquin, to take a macro view of this, and this is how I'm thinking, is the steps would be like, decide you want to immigrate to the US, find an attorney, make a decision between your options of whether it's talent, work, family, or otherwise, and then work with the attorney to get the information they need and then submit it for approval, right?
Me and you have talked several times about how detail-oriented these processes are, and it's important that you have a team that you can rely on in this process. It's not a quick, easy process, regardless of the visas that you're applying. The U.S. government obviously has an interest in making sure that everybody passes their tests, right? And what I mean by that, I mean there's no criminal background, there's no immigration, negative immigration background, and that you meet the requirements for the particular visa, right? So it's important, yeah, like I said, to find the appropriate team, work with the team, and then essentially make sure that you figured out which one is the best option based on your circumstances, your talents, your profile, and get to the visa that's best fit for you.
Amazing, Joaquin. Thank you so much. And if you watching have any questions, comment below and we'll try and answer your questions. Send us an email, like, subscribe, we'll be in touch. And yeah, comment below with your questions so we can answer those and make more videos, because the idea of this whole thing is to provide information so that you're more informed and that you can make better decisions yourself as you decide whether or not to immigrate to the United States. So thank you for being here, and we'll see you on the next video.